Hi everyone, it's Kelly from Kelly's Bead Boutique. So I've been making and teaching how to make jewelry for a very long time. And one of the comments that I always hear is, you make it look so easy. Well, I think it is, and I want to show you just how easy it can be. So I'm going to take some simple parts and some simple techniques and put them together and teach you how to make your very own jewelry. If you want to see what I'm making today, come and join me. Okay, so the parts we're going to be using today include some 2mm leather, and I have about 1 meter here. I'm also going to be using all TR cast today because you know how much I love them. So I've got one of their beautiful little pendants and a large ring, and I have a pair of bead caps, and I love these bead caps because I use them in all different ways, and I often will flatten them and use them as a different kind of a spacer, so these are really versatile. I also have one of their pinch bails. I have some head pins that have a ball on the end of it. I have 2 4mm little fire polish, and then I have this beautiful big fire polish. It is like about a 17 by 10 or something like that. And this will be available in kit form, and you'll be able to pick out your colors because I have a couple different colors of these, and I'll show the other one at the end. But this one is a gorgeous sort of periwinkle blue with the Picasso on it. Love that. And we're going to be using some 20 gauge craft wire in a titanium color. And for our tools today, we're going to be using our 4 basic tools: our round nose pliers, our bent chain nose pliers, our cutters, and our chain nose pliers. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut myself about 8 inches of wire. And I don't really measure my wire, but if you do buy a kit, I will make sure that you get plenty of wire for your project. So now I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and put them on the very end. And then I'm just going to straighten that out. That's probably too much wire, but you know, I never measure things. So, all right, I'm going to go about 2 inches down, a good healthy 2 inches, and I'm going to bend away. And now I'm going to make a wrapped loop. So I'm going to take my round nose pliers, place the wire in between, and I want to go up a little bit. I don't want to have a small loop because we have to get through this hole here. So I'm going to go up and over and down, open my pliers, rotate them so they're now parallel to the table. Take this tail and pull it straight to the back. And then I just kind of line it up and make sure that that looks just like a nice little sort of stop sign there. Now I'm going to take my pendant and I'm going to put the wire through, and I always take the short end and put that through, and then I just sort of pop that open with my fingernail as I go to pull it through there. Now I'm going to take it and place the short wire on the top and put my pliers right over that loop so I have a good grip on it, and I'm going to wrap a couple times. And you can wrap with your hand, or you can wrap with your pliers, whatever makes it easier. I'm just switching back to my hand because I find it a little bit easier on this one. So I'm just wrapping a couple times and then heading back towards my pliers because I'm just going for that sort of bulky, messy wrap look. Now I'm going to use the flush side of my cutters, and I'm going to come in and trim that off. And now I always like to check for burrs, and the way that I do that is hold it in my left hand so I can see the burr coming straight at me there. And I just take my pliers and just kind of push down gently. So that's what we should have so far. So now we're going to build our piece. So we're going to put on one of our bead caps and our beautiful big donut. You can see in relationship to that how big that is. I love that. And then we're going to repeat on the top. So I'm going to do another wrapped loop. Now this one I want to be going in the exact same direction as this. So I'm going to turn it so that I can see it. I find it easier if I do it this way, and then I know my loops are going to go the same way. And I'm going to pull that straight across. Now I need a large loop on this one, so I'm going to go up even higher on my pliers. So again, if you have the shorter ones that are more like that length, just make sure that you go to the end because we want to have a nice big loop. So up and over and down, rotate, pull that wire to the back, and now you can see it's really off center. So I just pull it all the way up like that, and then straighten out the little arm, and then we have our loop just the way we want it. So now we're going to place on our ring. Now you have to take the ring and you have to place it backwards when you put it on so that it will turn the right way. If I turn it this way, we'll end up with this pattern, and I want this pattern on the front. So I'm going to start from the back, and I'm going to pop that in there, and then now you can see I've got them going the right direction. So that's just a little design tip to make your life easier. Now we're going to repeat as we did in the beginning, go across that loop. I'm going to go down a couple times and then work my way back up until I'm happy with how it looks. And then I'm going to trim off that little bit of excess wire. And I want to make sure I'm only cutting the wire that I want and nothing else. So I'm just pulling that back a bit because it was getting a little too close. And now I'm going to come in and tuck that little burr down. So this one actually has like some little funky thing happening to it. So I am going to trim that off a little bit more because I don't love the way that that looks. So just give it a little trim. And then now I can push that little burr in there. So, you know, sometimes wire wrapping just doesn't go the way that you want, even though you've done them a million times. So you just kind of have to adjust as you go along. So now I'm going to have a look and make sure that it's straight, and I can see that that is turned a little bit. So I just want to even those out so that they're both going the same direction. And look how cute that looks already. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our pinch bail and we're going to slide it over top, and then I'm just going to push those together. Now I can use my fingers and get that together nice and tight. You could use your pliers, but you might run the risk of marking up your piece. So I would just be really, really careful if I use my pliers. The other thing that you could do is use a pair of nylon jaw pliers and push together, but this is pretty malleable, so you'll find that you should be able to close it nicely with your fingers. All right, so now we're going to make our little wrapped loops. So I'm going to take one of my head pins and one of my fire polish, and I'm just going to bend the neck there, and we're just going to make little wrapped loops. So I don't want a very large loop, so I go down towards the end of my pliers. And you want to make sure that you put it through here before you wrap. So I'm just going to go through this bottom one next to the pendant. Just go through the loop and wrap that up. And we're going to do that sort of bulky, messy wrap kind of thing. So go down a couple and then work your way back up. And I'm using my fingers a lot today because my hands are feeling strong. But if they're not, then just use your bent chain nose and that will make life a little bit easier. Give that a little trim. And then I always tuck my burrs down because I can see that sticking up right now and I don't love the way that looks. Let me grab it with my other pair of pliers here. Grab hold of that. So I can see that sticking up, and I just am never a fan of jewelry that looks like it's sort of 3/4 made. So I feel like just by adding that little bit of a pinch down, it just makes it look that much nicer. Okay, so now we're going to do the same with our other little one here, and this is a beautiful periwinkle that goes nicely with that bead. So just bend at the neck, and we're just going to make a little wrapped loop. So I go in the same place because I want them to look similar, but if they're not identical, it doesn't matter. And then we're just going to go next to the other one, and these will kind of overlap on top of each other, but they will lay side by side. So that's exactly the look I was going for. And sometimes it can take a little bit of, finagling to get it in there because there's so much metal in there. All right, so go down a couple. And again, this is the place where it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just kind of going for that bulkier look. So each one of my wraps has turned out a little bit different today, and that's perfectly fine. So give that a little bit of a trim. And then just so that you can see, I'm going to grab hold of this with my bent chain nose pliers and give that a little push down just to make sure there's no sharp edges. All right, and this is what we have happening so far, and I'm just loving how that looks. It's so cute. Okay, so now we're going to do our sliding knots. Now I have done a tutorial or two on sliding knots, but a lot of people said they couldn't see properly, so I'm going to try and break it down a little more in this one. So you want to make sure that you take your piece of leather and run it through, and it doesn't matter if it's equal at this point because it's going to just move around in there. So now this is 39 inches, or 39.3 is what a meter is. So this will make either a short or a long necklace because you can adjust it as you go along. So you may have to make it and try it on and see if the length is going to work for you. You can always pull the knots out and remake it, but I find that this is a really good length to have an adjustable necklace. Okay, so we're going to just start working on this, and hopefully this one will be a little bit easier than the other one. Okay, so I'm going to go about 5 inches or so down. So I don't know, 5 or 6 inches. We're going to go about this much down, and we're just going to make a bend in one of my leathers. So now it looks like we have 2 pieces of leather, but we really only have one. I've just got a bend in it up here. Now I'm going to take my piece from the other side, so the one that's still loose, and I'm going to go underneath that leather. So now it looks like we have 3 pieces of leather. So there's the one on top and the one that I brought in the middle. Now what I'm going to do is pull that one back just a little bit. We don't need very much there. So I just kind of take that and pinch that all together. So I still only have 2 pieces of leather. It just looks like 3. Now I'm going to take this innermost one, so the one that is loose but is a little longer, and I'm going to bring it to the back, and I'm going to start wrapping towards my right hand. So this is kind of like a barrel knot, but not exactly. So I don't use a tube on this one. So I'm just going to wrap 3 times. And when I get to the end here, I want to take that end and I want to put it down through that loop. So you can just kind of pop it down and then grab hold of it. So now I'm going to take my fingers and push and pull that together. So I'm sort of pulling on this to tighten that up, but I'm pushing the leather up with my left hand to try to move it along and tighten it. So you kind of have to use a push and pull method. So I'm just moving the leather back and forth until it tightens up. So just kind of have to boss it around. There we go. Get that all nice and snug. And you do want it really tight because that's the whole point of this being a knot. Okay, so get that nice and tight. So that's our first side. Now this next side is where everybody gets hung up. So what I'm going to do is turn it around and do the exact same thing. But now I'm going to pull this one out. So we've only got one loose end. So you can see this one is the one that I'm working with at the beginning. And I'm actually, to make life easier, I'm going to cut that off right now. I'm going to just trim that off. So now you can see that I only have one end here. So I'm going to pull that out about 6 inches. So I've got about 6 inches there. So now I'm going to take that and I'm going to just bend it close to this knot here. And now it looks like I've got 3 here, but they're just little. So we've only got one piece. There's the piece that we've already made. So I've got this end. I'm going to turn it over on top. So now we've got 1, 2, 3, it looks like. And again, I'm going to repeat. So I take this one here and I'm going to bring it around to the back. So just push it around to the back. And then I start looping it towards my right hand. And I'm keeping it nice and loose, but I'm nice and neat, like they're all stacked up next to each other. Now we're going to take this end and we're going to run it down through that loop. Now you're going to do your push-pull thing. So I find it better if you sort of push a little more than pull. Otherwise, if you start pulling, you're going to get it down too far on the leather, and then you can end up with a little bit too short of leather. So it's kind of a combined effort here. So you just kind of have to keep pushing and pulling until you get your knot nice and tight. But you don't want to pull so tight that you break it. So now we're going to trim that off. And now you can see we've got our sliding knots. So when you first make this, it can be a little challenging to get them open and closed. So I don't recommend pulling these super tight because you will find it's hard to get them apart. But once you've done this a few times and you've worn it and you've opened and closed this a lot, it will make it a little bit easier. So right now when I'm doing it, it looks pretty stiff because I've never opened and closed these. So after a few times, it will be easier. So you can see with a little effort, because I do my knots pretty tight. But so now what you can do is you can wear this as a nice long necklace like this. If you want to have something that maybe falls down a little lower on your chest. Sorry, I've got dog hair everywhere because I have a dog that sheds. Or you can take this and pull them apart, and then you can, as long as you can get that over your head, you can wear these towards the front and have it like a little bit of a design feature. So that's how to do a sliding knot, and that's how we complete this necklace. And now I'm going to show you both pieces. Okay, so there you go. There's our completed pieces. I'm absolutely loving how these turned out. I think what I'm going to do for the kits, because I do these things at the last minute on the fly, is this will be one color combination and then this will be the other. So this will be sort of our almond color and this will be our periwinkle color. And I just love how the two different colors look so perfect with these metals. These are in very limited quantities. I'm trying to source out these beads a little harder. I've been having a heck of a time trying to find them again. So I do have a few, but I don't have a ton of them available in stock. So let's cross our fingers and hope I can find some more, because I think you guys are going to really enjoy this one. If you aren't a big fan of the leather, you can also add chain through here. So there's lots of different options. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to give me a like, leave me a comment and tell me which one your favorite is. And I do love to hear from everybody, so I do appreciate all the comments that I get. And please make sure if you haven't subscribed to my channel that you do so, as it really does help it out. I want to thank you so much for watching, and we will see you on the next one.